Recognizing a problem is the first step to getting a solution. Hello. 1/3, that's the percentage of people in Europe who will be aged over 65 by 2060. 12% of us will have even celebrated our 80th year. So much the better, except that unless you're a superhero, the older you get, the more care you need. That care may be provided by professionals, but not always and not only. The most widespread form of care is unpaid, so-called informal care, from people who have no training, a family member, a friend, for example. Indeed, 80% of dependent elderly people are cared for by someone in their immediate circle. All well and fine, but nearly 50% of informal carers have to juggle a paid job with their caring responsibilities. Nearly 40% of people in Europe care or have cared for an elderly parent, and that's not even counting those who are caring for a child, spouse, brother, sister, or friend with care needs. Almost all of us will be carers at some point in our working lives. And that's no easy task. A European survey of 6,000 family carers found that 1 in 7 of them had to reduce their working hours to meet their caring commitments. Others have been forced to turn down a promotion and the pay raise that came with it. True, carers are more often absent from work than their colleagues, and it's a real challenge for employers as staff with caring responsibilities either take more time off to care for a loved one or don't take time off but are so exhausted they end up taking sick leave more often. Stands to reason, when you pile on the pressure, something is bound to snap. And the burden of care often falls to those who already experience discrimination. For starters, it's usually the less well-off who are affected, since richer people can afford to pay for a professional to care for a family member. On top of that, most carers are women. Men make up anything from 1/5 to nearly half of all carers in the EU, depending on the country concerned. No cause for alarm, one might think, except that the greater the burden of care, the wider the gender gap, with women accounting for 3/4 of those carers providing more than 2 hours of care a day. But this should come as no surprise if we look at the root of the problem. Take, for example, a straight couple with a family member in need of a few hours of care each week. If you compare the relative earnings of the couple, who has more to lose in switching to part-time employment or cutting back on overtime? Statistically, it's the woman. Even today, men earn 29% more than women on average in Europe, so it makes sense to sacrifice the smaller income. And the gap also widens the higher up the job ladder you look. Indeed, because of the difficulties of doing a high-powered job on a part-time basis, it's typically women who, on average, rise to lower levels of seniority who make the sacrifice. Though, in all fairness, it's a sacrifice that only perpetuates the existing status quo in our societies. The fact is that it's typically the woman who works part-time to be available to look after the children. And whether we're talking about childcare or the care of other family members, the issue is the same, and it's the same women who are in the firing line. Existing inequalities only work to reinforce discrimination against informal carers. So, what can be done about it? Well, we should stop sweeping the problem under the carpet for starters. Begin by talking about it, applying ourselves to the task, and the solutions are there. Change the law to facilitate unplanned leave from work, compensate carers for loss of earnings and lost pension rights, improve access to professional care. True, all of these things cost money, but informal carers save huge amounts of money for society, not least by keeping people out of residential care. There may be a long way to go to achieving an ideal world, but every step counts, however small.